Marhaba and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited to see over 300 of you join us on day 2 of the ACT Middle East Treasury Summit 2021, transforming challenges into strategic growth opportunities. If you missed any of the live content from yesterday, there's still time to catch up. Just scroll over to the agenda tab on the left and click on the on-demand button under the sessions that have taken place. We also have 2 pre-recorded Treasury 101 training sessions that you can find in the main menu bar. For some great insights on API implementation and the changing priorities for treasurers, I strongly recommend you watch Practical Insights and Experiences into API Implementation and the increased efficiency and visibility of doing so in association with ADCV. And also we have, as a recommendation, Changing Priorities for Global and Regional Treasurers in association with Barclays Bank. Both sessions, along with all other live sessions taking place during the event, will be available to watch at your leisure here on the virtual platform for 14 days after the conference ends. Do ensure to take the time to familiarize yourself with the user-friendly platform if you haven't already. Just navigate over to the main menu on the left and be sure to make the most of the interactive networking opportunities available to you by scrolling through the attendee list, where you'll be able to connect with your Treasury peers through video, call, and chat. On the left of your screen, you'll also find a link to the latest copy of our official magazine, The Treasurer, which is now available to download for your viewing. For some useful hints and tips, please do also visit the Help and Information page, where you'll find details on how to network, take notes, catch up on demand, and earn points in the ACT Treasury Hunt, most importantly. We have another packed agenda today, starting with the special opening keynote interview in just a few minutes on empowering women in Treasury, where I'll be speaking with Rola Abu Manneh, Chief Executive Officer, UAE from Standard Chartered Bank, on the work being done for greater diversity across the Middle East in enhancing female empowerment and providing equal opportunities across the finance and treasury professions. This will then be followed by more sessions throughout the day on ESG and sustainability, key macroeconomic indicators, including interest and currency rates and inflation, and 4 more Treasury labs, which will hone in on topics including optimizing your Treasury management system, practical steps to trade digitalization, the ambition for real-time payments, and a spotlight on Qatar. Finally, we'll end today with a closing keynote address, followed by a discussion on adapting to change in demographics that I look forward to facilitating with panelists Muhsin Al-Rustam, Chief Financial Officer from SYD, Nairan Seshan, Senior Advisor Treasury from Omantel, and Bruno Macera, CFO Middle East BRF. I'm really excited about today's agenda. As mentioned before, recordings from all the live sessions will be available to view on demand for 14 days. If you're interested in learning more about our ACT qualifications and training courses, you can speak to our learning team and hear about our programs and how they can help you achieve your goals in a drop-in session hosted on Microsoft Teams at 1 p.m. For details on how to join, please visit the ACT stand in the exhibition hall. I'd also like to give another big thank you to our gold sponsors, ADCB and Barclays, and to our other sponsors and exhibitors, of course, Bank of America, Bottomline Treasury Express, Commercial Bank of Dubai, Citi, Kyriba, Refinitiv, and Swift, without whom this event wouldn't be possible. Don't forget to visit the exhibition hall, where you can check out the virtual stands of our sponsors who provided a variety of helpful downloadable resources. Finally, I hope you're having fun searching for codes in the ACT Treasury Hunt for your chance to win an Amazon voucher worth up to $250. In total, there are $400 worth of vouchers to be enjoyed by the lucky winners. So just click on the ACT Treasury Hunt tab at the left-hand side of your screen for more information on how to play. Also, don't forget to complete the feedback survey on the ACT Middle East Summit, which enters you into a draw for a prize of $100 in Amazon vouchers. You can enter this up until Wednesday, the 13th of October, which is also the date that the Treasury Hunt closes. I wish you all a great day 2 of the ACT Middle East Treasury Summit 2021 and look forward to you joining our first session of the day in just a moment when Rola Abu Manneh joins me. Thank you. Welcome again, and as you can see, I'm now joined by Rola Abu Manneh, who's Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bank UAE, a role she's held since August 2018. She's the first Emirati woman to head a bank in the UAE. Before joining Standard Chartered Bank, Rola was the head of corporate and investment banking for Abu Dhabi at First Abu Dhabi Bank. And in this role, her responsibility was to maintain relationships between FAB and its client base, including government-related entities, elite customer groups, family corporations, local corporations, multinational corporations, and commercial banking services. Prior to this, Rola served as General Manager of FAB's Wholesale Banking Group, which comprised project finance syndications, Financial Institutions Group, and Global Transaction Banking. In 2019, Rola was included in Arabian Business's World's Most Powerful Arabs list. She was also recognised by Forbes ME as one of the top 20 women leading top companies in the Middle East. Also in 2019, Financial News listed her as one of the most influential female leaders. So very, very impressive CV. Rola completed her studies at the University of London, Royal Holloway and Bedford New College, and holds a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Operational Research. She speaks fluent Arabic and English and is married with 2 children. Welcome again, Rola, and I'm delighted that you can join us here this morning to talk about women's empowerment and the progress that's being made in that. I have a series of questions, and I'll also be looking for any questions that pop up from the audience to ask you as we go through this 40-minute session. So welcome again, and maybe you could start off by giving us some personal thoughts and insights as to why female empowerment is indeed such an important topic.
Thank you, Caroline. It's always lovely to be back at the ACT, and hopefully next year we will have it in face and in the UAE. And thank you for inviting me also. So, I mean, it is no surprise that women around the world, they continue to be constrained when it comes to economic empowerment and advancement. And this is due to a variety of reasons. It's the social, legal, and institutional barriers that we face. Because if you look at it, we're faced with a double burden of work and domestic responsibilities, as well as the gender stereotypes in the workplace. Which sectors a woman choose, the lack of other female role models, and lack of opportunities to network. And one of the most effective ways of eliminating these constraints is by changing things at the leadership level. So throughout my career, I've always championed women empowerment and female entrepreneurship. And this is through different initiatives. And this dedication really stems from my deep commitment to driving a diverse and inclusive workforce at the bank. And this is part of our global brand of promise of being here for good. And the value that diversity and inclusion have produced in the public and private sector, we see is very much evident. So apart from the broader economic impact that greater representation provides, diversity and inclusion, when seen as a key focus area, has been found that it enhances operational success and overall profitability by double digits. So the impact of increasing female representation on board levels is specifically very crucial for corporates and public institutions. And we're seeing more and more governments are, pushing and promoting for this. And it does ensure that diverse voices and opinions are heard and addressed. Secondly, complementing the strengths of men with that of women will facilitate greater opportunity for operational performance and governance. Diversity and inclusion is not only policies, governance, programs, and headcounts as well. It's more than that. And I'm a firm believer that in a competitive advantage that equitable employers obtain as they respect the needs, the perspectives, and potential of all their team members. And that's why diverse and inclusive workplaces, they earn deeper trust and more commitment from their employees.
Absolutely. You make some really good points, as you say, that deeper trust, happier employees, but also that real business case that it affects your bottom line positively, that I think many people haven't really realized, but there's a lot of research and a lot of statistics out there. So great points that you've raised there, Rola. I'd like to talk a little bit now about you personally, ask you what are some of the challenges you have faced through your career, and whether any of them have related, in fact, to you being a woman.
So, like most women, I have faced challenges in the corporate world, and there were many instances throughout my career where it was difficult to get where I aspired to be. And climbing the corporate ladder was somewhat of a slow burn, you can say, given my ambitions, which sometimes frustrated me. However, when I look back, being a CEO now and leading an entire workforce has shown me that employees need to really assert themselves and learn continuously before being given greater responsibility for both, to the benefit of the organization and the individual. And you do face challenges throughout your journey, but it should not be a setback. It would just make you stronger. And this is where, in my case, I continued to remain courageous, brave, believing in myself. And if you look at the banking sector, and it's evident that it is more of a male-dominated space. So to choose to be part of it is already addressing that. We know there's these challenges, but we have to take the courage as women and face these challenges. And I found that shattering that metaphoric glass ceiling is one that can sometimes deter women from the corporate environment altogether, was a task that brought with it considerable amount of uncertainty. But at the same time, it brought lots of excitement to take on this challenge. So I continued to really approach my work with a high degree of confidence and just march along. So from that angle, that is how it led me to where I am today.
And very wise words. I think certainly in lots of the encounters I have with other professional women, there's sometimes that a little bit of a lack of confidence or a little bit of doubt, and a lot of the studies show that as well. So it is really important to boost your confidence, and it may seem a little bit unfamiliar to some of us, but really, really important. Wise words there. And you reflected then on the male dominance in the banking sector, and of course in finance generally. Are there any particular skills you think that are needed in order to deal with the challenges of that rather male-dominated society, if you like?
I think that's a very good question, Caroline. And look, throughout my career, I would say I was lucky to really be surrounded by experienced and inspirational leaders that have mentored me and turned me into a driven leader I am today. And they would be, and if I look back, they would be the ones that would be very tough and very blunt, but yet put me on the right track. And the best advice I've ever received, I would say, is threefold: is to stay hungry, stay motivated, and compassionate. It's very important that as leaders also we show compassion. And the guidance played an immense role in my ability to succeed and achieve my career aspirations. I mean, after all, these three elements make an excellent rounded employee, which as well becomes a strong leader. And it's the same one I would give to the younger generation, but I would add on it is that given what we have seen in the pandemic, it is, and in this age, it's very important to be future ready. And at Standard Chartered, what we've done is, as more so in the UAE, we've conducted a survey during the pandemic times, and it was with young people between the ages of 18 and 34. And the survey came out to show that most of in this age group, they were very confident in their skills and prepared to work the hardest to realize opportunities in a post-COVID world. At the same time, 87% of the same segment in the UAE felt that they have the digital skills needed to thrive post-COVID, compared to a 71% globally. So it just shows us that this younger generation, they're willing to retrain and reskill and to change, to make, in case for their future earnings, to expand their future earnings and become more tech savvy.
Absolutely. And there's so much going on in the UAE in the digital space. It's absolutely amazing. And just recently about the resilience as well. UAE comes top of the list there as well. So some fantastic things going on in the region. But also, before I move on to that a little bit more into some detail there, I liked your words on the three things to think about, particularly that compassion. I think also through COVID, we've seen that more empathetic leader, while still highly motivated and driven, as you say, and very competent technically, but still having that empathy and compassion is really, really important, I think, in a leader. And we're seeing that shining through in those who are successful. But back to the UAE. How do you see the wider initiatives, and the questions just come up, across the UAE, improving female representation on boards and allowing women to play a more equal role in society? The question is real progress being made?
Well, I would say, yes, definitely. The last few years, we could see there's much more progress. It is not only just out as a law, but if you look at the great initiatives in bridging this gender gap, what the UAE has done. So under the Vision 2021, the UAE aims to be one of the top 25 leading countries in the world in terms of gender equality. And this is supported by the UAE Gender Balance Council. Today, it has demonstrated notable progress in these efforts, having advanced a significant 23 places in the UN Development Programme under the Gender Inequality Index, making it the first in the Arab region. We've also seen the creation of some landmark legislations around equal pay for men and women in the private sector. And then they've also introduced the paternal leave of 5 days in the private sector. And it's one of its first of its kind. So all the governments, businesses, and financial institutions have a role to play in accelerating female leadership and supporting government initiatives. So And lastly was making sure that there is a female representation on the boards of listed companies. So we see lots and lots of progress in this area, but this is a journey, Caroline, and it cannot obviously be done in a few years. There is a gap, and it will take a generation. But what is there? The whole idea is bringing forward more women to put up their hand and say, I want to be a leader, I want to be to progress and have that courage, because it's a two-way street. You need the woman to come forward and acknowledge that it is a journey. They also have to work on themselves, which and the government will support. So we're seeing more and more women come forward as well.
Indeed, it is great to see that government support, and great to see organisations such as our own panel member Diana Wilde and Aurora 50, and the work that Her Royal Highness Sheikh Sharma is doing. It's all really impressive stuff, and such engagement, and things are absolutely, from our perception, on moving forward. But as you say, the individuals have to do the hard work as well. But that's really great to hear all of that. And we have a question here which touches on, it's a kind of follow-up from what you were saying earlier about young people and technology and so on. And the question is, what do you see as the impact of the last 18 months of the lockdown? Has the virtual world accelerated developments in this space, or has it hampered or even reversed progress?
So it's no secret. I mean, the pandemic and what COVID has brought about is a huge fundamental and structural change in the way organization work, and it will alter the very standard of workplaces globally. And we've often spoken about the future of work, but now it is clear that with the implications of the pandemic, it will result in a reimagined reality for the norms of working standards worldwide. And leaders have to capitalize on the new reality and embrace it to leverage and implement a digital workplace moving forward, as this will unlock lots of opportunities and harness the ability to optimize the operations across the board. Now, so we see this is a great opportunity for diversity, and thanks to the technology. As we become increasingly a digital society, we expect that new technology will continue to enter the market and create new jobs and require new skills, because technology has really become the window to our world, as we've seen in the recent months, and has enabled us to stay connected with all the colleagues, clients, and communities where we work and live. So the diversity and inclusion technology for talent acquisition has been a significant growth area, and there is a breadth of solutions for attracting a diverse workforce, reducing the unconscious bias in the recruiting process, and facilitating effective candidate selection. This allows really the recruiters and management to assess each candidate based purely on their qualifications and independent from factors such as gender, ethnicity, and it does help pave the way forward. So what we're seeing is more and more diversity and inclusion is quickly becoming non-negotiable in really the modern workplace, and ever-evolving technological advancement make it easier really than ever before to begin building an inclusive culture.
Absolutely, it's really interesting, isn't it? I'm seeing that as well, sort of globally, that shift into a more technology-driven world is allowing more flexibility.
Yeah.
It's allowing more diversity. Though on the other hand, it was quite interesting at the outset of COVID. We noticed sometimes women weren't showing up as much. And it seemed that in a lot of places, depending on the culture around the world, sometimes it was the women that were having to look after the kids that were at home, or the women having to deal with things because the cleaners couldn't come in, or so we did see a little bias against women initially, but it does seem to have balanced out. And as you say, it really, people are on much more equal footing. And I think it's interesting when you're on these calls as well, and now people are getting together, and sometimes you'll have a group of people in the call and you can't see them as well as we can see each other now. And you suddenly feel really puzzled because you can't see the full face of the person. So I think we've kind of got quite used to being really close to people, even though we're thousands of miles or kilometers apart, which is really fascinating. But thank you for that. We've got another interesting question here, I think. Where do you see the conversation surrounding female empowerment in relation to enhanced diversity in other areas, as well as the regional aim of emiratisation?
So, when we look at emiratisation in the UAE, obviously this has always been on the agenda in the banking sector, and we as a bank, like all the other banks, we focus on bringing on top Emirati talent, training them and making sure that they have a career in the bank. And this is also part of our commitment in the country. And we've seen more and more Emiratis, come to banking sector. And that's why when you look at the banking sector, it's over 30% in terms of Emiratization. But it is still maybe possibly low compared to other countries around us. But at the same time, we have seen that the recent announcement where the government has allocated 24 billion dirhams basically to hire 75,000 Emiratis in the private sector over a period of 5 years. Now, this is because when you go outside banking and government entities and the pure government departments, you will see very, very little Emiratis, as low as 1 or 2%. So this initiative allows more private sector, giving them the ability to take Emiratis in different sectors, whether it is hospitality, transportation, contracting, and other areas. Because it is important that that a full workforce goes in the different sectors they want to be in. And from that angle, I think that's a very good initiative. And we'll see more and more Emiratis join this. Now, and as I said, we remain committed to our Emiratization strategy. We've also, from that angle, we've also introduced one more initiative as a bank, which is increasing the maternity leave from 90 days to 140 days, which is more than what the government provides. At the same time, on the paternity, while the government gives 5 days, we have 10 days of their time can be used. And this is incentives to, bring on more make the banking sector more attractive.
Absolutely. It sounds really great, the work that you're doing, and really, really important topics. So we'll be watching that space as those percentages go up. Just moving on to a slightly different topic now, mentoring. Just wondered what your views are on mentoring and how that can help, particularly the more junior members of staff and female members of staff as they move through the organisation. What are your views?
So mentoring, Caroline, is really a very important tool to have in an organization because it helps to motivate and encourage, especially the younger employees, because it puts them on the right path. And many studies point to the fact that mentoring supports diversity and inclusion efforts, whether it's by retaining more of the underrepresented employees or preparing them for future leadership roles. So introducing this program can have a significant impact on the company's culture because it demonstrates commitment to the development of the employees, which comes with many benefits. So for instance, it helps increase the retention, improves productivity, and makes the workforce feel cared for. And all these positive outcomes further strengthen the culture and make a company a great place to work and an employer of choice. So for us, it is key in our bank, and we have a very strong mentoring program.
That's great, and it's great that people that have experience are willing to share that with others to help them in their careers. Very, very, very good to hear that. What other initiatives do you have at Standard Chartered Bank to support female employees in achieving their full potential?
So, I mean, the most I would say is fostering a diverse and inclusive culture. It allows us to attract and retain the brightest and best talent, because this helps engages your employees and demonstrates a commitment to inclusion, allowing them to bring their whole self to work. And we pride ourselves on being one of the very few global banks that is really committed to improving the gender balance, empowering women across the entire spectrum of the organization, as we recognize that it's no longer a business issue, but a moral one. And I have, throughout my career, I've always championed women empowerment through various initiatives and have striven to promote the gender equal culture across the workplace. So, and in Standard Chartered, we have a diversity and inclusion committee in every country, which is chaired by the CEO, because we look at everything from our vendors to employees to basically how we work with our clients. So it's a full spectrum. And we all have targets to meet, and even as a bank, if you look at it, we are 31% have female representation on our board. We also have this target to increase it by 36%. Our senior leadership females is globally it's above 30%. And we have 14 of our biggest markets. We have female CEOs, and the UAE, China, Hong Kong, and other countries. And I'm actually proud to be one of them. So it's a very important agenda, but it is becoming more part of our DNA because we talk more inclusion.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think, Rola, on targets? I mean, some people over time, we've often heard people say, "Oh, targets are wrong," and positive discrimination and so on and so forth. But then on the other hand, it's very easy for people to recruit in their own image. It's something that we humans do, that unconscious bias. We're not necessarily intending it. What's your view on targets in general terms when it relates to diversity?
So, I mean, when you have a diverse panel, regardless, you have to start with that having diverse panel of males, females, different nationalities. So to be fair, at the same time, you will have a diverse list of candidates because you don't want to put the wrong person in the job just because she is a female also at the same time, because that will backfire on what we're doing as relating to female empowerment. And that is why I say it has to be part of our DNA to be an inclusive organization. How do we include all ethnicity, all genders, all nationality? You need your male colleagues to be on this journey with you. Because now maybe we are a minority as females, and that is why we have to go around the targets levels. And it's not only for the gender, but also if you want to have an inclusive culture of different nationalities, because that's what will bring a healthier organization and more teamwork, more ideas. And we've seen this when you have an inclusive culture, that's where you will have more innovation. More people come up giving ideas and speaking openly and being part of, and they will feel that they are part of this organization without excluding anybody. But I always say it has to be the right person for the right job, regardless of gender or ethnicity.
Absolutely. But that feeling of inclusion that you comment on there, absolutely important. And so sad when we think of historic times where people are. I've just been reading a book about Negroes in America, as they were called at the time, passing for white because it was a better life if they could pass as a white person. And it covers all kinds of different areas of inclusion, this particular book, about two twins growing up in the south of the US in the 1960s. Really, really interesting. And it just brings it home to me how, that feeling of not belonging somewhere, it is so important for all of us to feel that we belong, isn't it? So it's really, really important. Thanks for sharing that. Now, I'd just like to ask you this question here. What advice would you give to female treasurers?
Another difficult question, Caroline. I would say a few I could give. It's very important to, if I could break them down, so to be proactive and not transactional. Because being proactive means really anticipating what might happen, planning ahead, preparing in advance, and acting ahead instead of simply reacting to circumstances. Proactivity builds your personal brand and reputation at work. So people will more and more rely and count on you to deliver. So it's very important you foster proactivity in your daily day-to-day regime as a key to ensuring you're providing your employer or your clients with value-added support. The second one, I would say, learn to think strategically. And we all know that developing strategic thinking skills is important. But many don't realize how critical it is in your career and to advance these skills in front of your management as leaders. And that is key, how to learn to think strategically. And employees at all levels and should take these initiatives to link what they're doing as day-to-day to their company strategy. So they are able to prioritize their work, time, and skills accordingly. Because this helps in developing great strategic thinking skills, which requires you to gain an exposure to the strategic roles in the organization and hence build a career for yourself. The third is be a catalyst for innovation, because disruption is a key driver of change for organizations of all sizes and industries. And we have seen during the pandemic and in the digital arena, how important is innovation and digitization. And organizations will look to recruit professionals that emulate and embrace this change. So it's important that we accept change because that's how it will help us move forward, and move out of our comfort zone and build a greater organizational contribution. And now the first step really in innovating is to be confident in your abilities and take that leap of faith.
Absolutely. Some very, very great words then. That point around disruption and change. I mean, change relates very closely to diversity, doesn't it? Because if you're accepting of a diverse team, then things are going to change. They're going to be different from what you're used to. But we as humans, we don't like change too much. But actually, I think if you do embrace it as you suggest, then you have got an advantage. And that really important word, prioritization. That's something that I'm talking about a lot at the moment. A really, really important skill. And then of course being strategic. And often people say, well, what is it to be strategic? But even if people are just simply looking out longer term, you start to think longer term rather than the day-to-day. You're already being strategic. So really, I love all of that. I'm now going to ask you a different question. It might have a different kind of answer. What would you advise men in support of empowering women?
What I always tell my male colleagues, you all have daughters, and I am sure you would want to see your daughters equally as successful as your sons. So it has to start from home. And if they have that right attitude and bring it to office, then they will embrace the diversity and inclusion agenda.
Absolutely. The same thing in my Unilever days, I used to say, let's target the guys who've got daughters, because they will become our allies. And it so neatly segues into my final question, because we are running out of time, so I'm sorry if we can't get to everyone's questions. But a final question, you have 2 children. I'm not sure if they're boys or girls or one of each.
One of each.
One of each. So what will your advice be to your daughter and your son?
Well, if you ask them, they will always say, I keep raising the bar for them, because to me, we've given them their education. And once they are starting their work, they really have to go through that journey. And it is work hard, play hard. That's my advice always to them.
Work hard, play hard. That sounds like good advice, and it sounds like it's something that you do as well, Rola. So we do have to round up in a moment or two. It's been a pleasure speaking to you again, as ever. Just to encourage our audience to give feedback in the usual way, continue the discussion. Let's hear your thoughts about this really, really important topic. And, do engage on social media, spread the word, because as I say, we feel here at the ACT it's really important. Rola and Standard Chartered clearly feel it's important, and we'd like to get the word out even further. But as I say, great to hear from you today, Rola. Great to hear what's going on in the UAE in terms of empowering women, and thank you once again for a really interesting chat and your great insights.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you, Caroline.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.